You scroll endlessly, watching lives unfurl like stories you're never part of. Faces smiling, moments curated, emotions packaged into something safe enough to be liked. And somewhere between one post and the next, a thought creeps in. What about the ones who don't post at all? Not the people who take breaks, not the ones who just don't care about social media, but the ones who are never there. No updates, no opinions, no presence, not even shadows in the comments. Who are they? They exist, you know they do, but they move behind the digital curtain, unseen, unreadable. You assume they're private, or shy, or simply above it all. But the truth most people never consider is darker. They're hiding, not from the internet, not from strangers, from something much closer, from themselves. Because in a world screaming for validation, refusing to post is not always competence. Sometimes it's rebellion, sometimes it's fear, and sometimes it's a silent prison. For many of them, invisibility was once safety. Silence was protection. Being unseen meant being unharmed. But what once kept them safe now slowly erodes something vital: their sense of belonging, their connection to others, their certainty that they even exist in the shared human story. You might think silence is peace, but silence can also be the loudest scream of pain no one is hearing. You don't see their internal battles, the ghosts of judgment that linger from past exposure, the memory of words twisted, feelings mocked, trust betrayed. They learned early that being seen had consequences. So they stay quiet, they stay hidden, they choose invisibility over exposure. Not because they don't want connection, but because connection once came with a cost they couldn't afford to pay again. And here is the paradox they live inside. The shield that was forged to protect them from emotional harm now isolates them from the very thing they crave most: human connection. This is not about technology. This is not about trends. This is about fear. Fear that vulnerability will be collected like ammunition. Fear that honesty will be misunderstood. Fear that once something is shown, it can never be taken back. And if you've ever wondered why some people never share, never speak up, never reveal themselves, this is the dark psychology behind that choice. To understand why some people vanish behind the screen, you have to look deeper than personality. The silence of the non-poster is not passive. It is active, strategic, learned. Often it begins with emotional neglect. A childhood where feelings were met with absence instead of care, where sadness was ignored, where joy went unnoticed, where emotional expression changed nothing or made things worse. Children in these environments learn quickly: nothing good comes from showing how you feel. So they internalize a rule before they can even name it. If I don't show, I won't be hurt. Then comes hypervigilance, a nervous system trained to scan for danger, even in harmless places. Every thought of posting is filtered through threat assessment. Who will see this? How will it be interpreted? What could this be used against me later? The brain's default mode network, the system that shapes identity and self-reflection, reorganizes around control instead of expression. The question is no longer, what do I feel? It becomes, what is safe to show? Over time, this leads to avoidant attachment, not because these people don't want closeness, but because closeness once came with unpredictability, rejection, or emotional punishment. Distance becomes regulation. Silence becomes power. Self-sufficiency becomes survival. Together, these patterns form an internal fortress, a fortress so strong that even the idea of posting feels like stepping into enemy territory. But every fortress has a cost, and the cost of silence is paid slowly. Philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre once said, "Hell is other people. For those who never post, hell is also being othered." Becoming invisible in a world that equates existence with visibility. There is an invisible grief that lives here. The grief of moments never shared, thoughts never voiced, versions of the self that never had witnesses. You watch birthdays pass without acknowledgement, achievements go unnoticed, struggles remain private even when they're crushing. You see other people's milestones like scenes from a life you're not fully allowed to enter. You are present, but you are not seen. This creates a specific kind of loneliness, not the loneliness of isolation, but the loneliness of erasure, surrounded by voices, drowned in noise, yet emotionally unheard. The constant calculation, is this safe? Is this worth the risk? Turns silence into a full-time job, and slowly the inner world begins to shrink. The self becomes guarded, carefully edited, locked away. But underneath all that restraint lives something raw, a desperate yearning to be known. In adulthood, this psychology reveals itself in quiet, familiar ways. You might notice it in how some people move through life. They prefer watching over participating. They consume more than they contribute. They exist on the edges of social spaces. They may avoid social media entirely or linger silently, never engaging. They struggle with vulnerability, even in close relationships. They share facts but not feelings, stories but not truth. Their self-worth is often tied to being low maintenance, not needing much, not taking up space. They regulate emotion through numbness, distraction, or dissociation. And these behaviors are often misunderstood as confidence, mystery, or maturity. But they are not personality traits. They are survival strategies. Strategies carved from environments where visibility felt dangerous. And here is the quiet truth. What kept you safe once may now be keeping you stuck. But awareness changes everything. Healing does not begin by forcing yourself to speak. That only recreates exposure without safety. Healing begins with witnessing the urge to disappear, witnessing the instinct to stay silent, witnessing the fear beneath the restraint. Healing starts with permission to be silent without shame, permission to be seen without pressure. Inner child reparenting asks a question most people never consider. What did I need when I learned to hide? Often, the answer isn't expression, it's protection. Choice, safety, nervous system regulation helps the body learn what the mind already suspects, that not every audience is a threat. Shadow work allows you to meet the parts of yourself that survive by staying invisible, not to judge them, not to erase them, but to thank them. They kept you alive. They kept you intact. This is not a call to overshare, not a demand to perform vulnerability. It is a call to discernment, to choose your moments, your audience, your truth. As Viktor Frankl wrote, between stimulus and response there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. Your silence is not weakness, it is wisdom shaped by experience. But you are allowed to decide when the armor comes off. You don't owe the world your story, but you owe yourself the chance to be whole. And if this spoke to you, if you felt recognized rather than analyzed, share it with someone who knows the weight of silence. Subscribe if you want more spaces like this. Spaces where strength is quiet, healing is personal, and being seen is a choice, not a demand.